televiewers, you're onto High Television, and the program you're about watching is Excellence Impact. It's always a pleasure to be with you every Monday, and also very important for us this day to have great minds on set who are here to dish out knowledge to the public. The program of today is going to be held in 3 sessions. The first session, we are going to be looking at the importance of contemporary books. The second session, we are going to be looking at the launching of 2 important books. And lastly, we are also going to be looking at the installation of Professor Kingsley Ngange as a notable of the paramount chiefdom of Buea. So that's how the program is going to look like this day. You are welcome again once more. I bring to you our guest for today. We have Mr. Musoke Lucas Lyonga, who is the General Coordinator of Excellence Union International Group and a modern nation builder. It's a pleasure to be with you on set.
It's my pleasure once more. Thank you so much for being there for us. Thank you.
We also have Professor Kingsley Ngange, Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Research, Cooperation and Business, University of Buea, researcher, author, and global leader. It's a pleasure to be with you on set, Prof.
It's always a pleasure, Alice, to come and share my thoughts with you. I'm grateful to High TV for the opportunity and for our viewers to be out there always staying glued to their TV sets to listen to what we have to say. Thank you and welcome aboard.
Okay, you're welcome. And to crown the set, we have Dr. Stephen Dode, Lecturer, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Buea. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you once more, Alice, for inviting me. I recall that the last time I was here, it was on another publication. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, and we set the ball rolling. Mr. Musoke, you're just going to be quiet for some time, permit me. We are talking about the importance of contemporary books. I'll start with you, Prof. Let's look at the world of today. The world is technologically driven, and people are still writing books. Even though I know most of the books that have been written are online, but we also have people who produce about 100, 200 hard copies. Why are they still doing that in this 21st century?
It's a traditional thing to do. We grew up reading books in hard copy. It's true that the internet has come and technology. Those only provide avenues for the dissemination of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So the books can take different forms now. They can take the electronic versions, but the paperback, as the hard copy, is still the traditional thing to do. It's, the feeling that you have when you have a book in your hands and reading it, especially a well-written book, is different. And in a short while, I guess, we'll be talking about the importance of books. Mm-hmm. They do many things, maybe it's not yet time to start talking about
no, it's okay.
But if it's okay, in contemporary times do not mean that we have to replace the, old ways of doing things, especially, when it was good. I always, teach my students that one communication medium does not necessarily replace the former. It started with print, newspapers, magazines, posters, flyers, and the rest. When radio came in, radio did not replace print. There are still places where people want to read their newspapers in hard copy. And when television eventually came in, it did not replace print, that is newspapers, posters, magazines, and the rest. It only provided better and wider platforms for all of these different forms of communication to reach the masses. And then now we have the era of technology, ICTs, and the whole world is technology inclined. But internet coming have not replaced also the other forms. What they have done is what I'm working on as the complementary theory of the traditional or conventional and social media or the electronic versions of communication which have come. They complement each other. We are on this set having our mobile phones in our hands, reading online platforms and seeing breaking news. And we use this opportunity to reach our public, to tell people about what is happening even from our internet and social media platforms. So books are important. As they were, that has not been replaced. That's just the point I'm trying to make. They are still a very strong source of knowledge. And today with internet, it's garbage in, garbage out. But in the traditional form of conceiving of writing, of editing, of proofreading, of reviewing, of going through the production process, and then publishing a book. That is where the rigor is. And so you don't have to, doubt a very good publication that has gone through this process, peer-reviewed process. So in this case, it's not garbage in, garbage out, as we see mostly in internet today. Whatever you can write and dump in there, you dump. So books can assure you of that, very important and good source of knowledge, and then when it's properly done, like I still remember the books we read when we were in primary and secondary schools, it improves on your vocabulary. It improves on your reading skills. It improves on your writing skills, all the different, skills of communication. They are improved by, what we read, especially, I still remember Ikweyama, the beautiful ones, Anoye Bon, Gugiwa Thiongo, Gugiwa Mira, Gehikan and Almaro When I Want. Those books, I still remember the lines of Shakespeare. I still remember those lines 20, 30 years on, because this is how books are supposed to impact us. They provide some form of mental stability, and then they take you into the world of what the writer wants you to get into. So it develops the spirit of empathy or even sympathy based on how the story is told. So there are many, many good reasons why books are inevitable, especially when they are well written. And so we are here not only to pass across the knowledge of the books that we have written, but also to promote the very essence of book writing.
All right, to promote the very essence of book writing. Books are very important and they impact knowledge. I'll come to you, Dr. Ndode. Looking at Cameroon, the reading culture is very low. People don't read. They say if you want to hide a secret, you should hide it inside a book. And before you write a book, the author, they have an objective. They have something they want to sell out there. And if you write this book, people don't read it. What do you think will be the outcome?
Now, writing is a process. And that process also involves including or involving those who are at the consumption level of it, which is the actual readers. That is why it's important to capture the essence of what the reader would expect to see in every publication. Now, the statement you made is what we hear every day, that Cameroonians don't read. But in my assessment, scientifically, it is very difficult to establish that, whether or not people read. Most of what we use are anecdotal evidences to establish readership and not actually the extent of the readership. Now, if you write a beautiful document, a beautiful piece of book, as we have done, and people do not read it, it is detrimental, because that information in the book is meant for them. So it is a way now for them to see how much they can capture from the contents that are presented in those documents, in those books. Now, writers have an objective, and that objective is to sell information, is to sell a message. And that message is contained, the unique message is contained in every piece of writing. So for our communities, for our societies to progress, to move forward positively, it is important to get closer to books. It's important to embrace the reading culture. And that should be part and parcel of us. Just as Professor Ngange explained, the reading culture should be the essence of every society. We should be able to embrace books, both in hard copy and also in online copies. Now, the illusion also that we live in is to want to think that everybody is online. It's not true. Not everybody is on the internet. So in as much as we are so much talking and enthusiastic about the internet world, we still need to have our physical libraries in place, in stock. And the kinds of productions that we are displaying here today are those that are meant to enrich our physical libraries in our universities, both public and private.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musoke. Good morning once more. Okay, you are a youth coach, and most of the times when you come on set, you always encourage youth to read. I think 155 books, if I'm not making a mistake, you correct me. And
156 books a year.
156 books a year they should read.
Yes.
All right. Do you think reading this book is what is going to solve the many problems that these African youth are facing?
No, I think what is more important is the content. If the books have content that are transformative, when you read those books, you'll be transformed and you'll become useful to the community and to the society. So the issue is not just books, but relevant books, contemporary books, books that have content that is transformative. So I think that is where the focal point is. That's where the emphasis is. Relevant books, contemporary books, books of value, books of substance, not just any book. Because there are many people who have written books that when you read through the book, you don't see what is really inside the book. So I think that's why I always encourage youth to read relevant books, important books, books that are contemporary, books that are transformative. Those are the type of books that are important, especially for the younger generation. But nevertheless, there are times that you may just wish to read, just to read. That time to is the best. I don't think that youth have that time to waste just reading anyhow. You should actually tailor your reading in a way that you get that which actually you are desiring to get. That is what is going to empower you, and that's what is going to enlighten you, and it's going to help you to be able to be useful to the community. So if a youth can read 156 books a year, that youth is going to become a giant in the next 5 years. And again, those books are contemporary books. And I also said that they should tailor their reading towards books that have to do with business, communication, governance, and so on. I explained this on set. Those books will give you actually what you need, because most people today are entrepreneurial. They are business driven. You need to know how to communicate, how to speak. Then you also need to know how the governance structure of a country is, so that you know how to operate in that country or other countries. But nevertheless, those who are doing medicine and other professional programs and the rest, they should also be able to read other books, other materials out of what is given to them in the four walls of their classroom. That's why I spoke about 156 books. It's very difficult. So many youths call me and ask me, how is that possible? I say, if you put it as a goal, and when I talk of reading a book, as I explained on set, I wish to come back. I say, you can buy a book, you can get a book, and only one chapter of that book is relevant to you as a person, because you are moving towards, you have a goal, you have an objective, you are moving towards a particular direction. So you may get a book, and only one chapter of that book is very important to you. You may get a book, and only just the foreword of that book is what you need. The other content might not be useful to you, but it will be useful to another person, depending on their vision and goal in life, and so on. So maybe just
do you have something to add to that?
Oh yeah, I think that reading is a skill. When we teach communication skills, we teach reading as one of the skills, alongside listening, alongside speaking and writing. So basically, those are the four communication skills. And you know, the human being is not only a political animal, as political scientists will say, but also a communication being, because communication is of very important, very crucial essence to the human being. What I want to say is that there is no individual, no single individual who does not communicate. You know, whether it's intrapersonal, interpersonal, group, and all of that. So how do you communicate when you don't have a content to communicate? The Latin say, nemo quod non habet. You cannot give what you don't have. And to develop the skill of reading, I was just going to add, there are things which are of essence. Passion, the inquisitive mind, to want to know more. Because you said the Cameroonians don't read. I think we do. But we just have to be told sometimes what to read. And Lucas mentioned this. It's unfortunate that I have to speak like that to be told what to read. But because, like a child, growing up and trying many things, because Lucas has already done that. So, but what is of essence is for us to know that the more we read, the more we become enlightened. And by the way, that's how people gained their liberties. When the printing process started, and there was now a proliferation of publications in medieval Europe. And when people started reading, that led to newspapers, magazines, and all those printed books and things from the philosophers' ideas, led to the age of enlightenment. So reading leads to enlightenment. And once you are enlightened, the next thing we see in history is what they call now the revolutions. Because now people wanted their liberties, political revolutions, religious revolutions, and so forth. There were change in government because people were enlightened, and the world is no longer the same. So you have to know a lot of things happening in the world, and you mentioned some of those key areas which are important to our daily life, which are politics, things about governments, because they touch on individual lives. They touch on the educational sector, health sector, legal sector, all the areas that we need on a daily basis to live. And those are some of the things that our books address. We will be presenting two books today in this program. Yes. One is media coverage of conflicts. Those conflicts involve everyone in society, and media and governments at war, because government has three main institutions which lead societies on daily basis: the executive arm, the judicial arm, the legislative arm, and then the media, which touch on all aspects of society. So these are contemporary ideas. So to conclude on what Lucas said, I think, yes, reading books is good. Good books with good content, because that's another issue, are also, it's good for the writers to package their books in a way that they are attractive, from the title to the content, and people want to read more about them. When you hear Shakespeare, you want to know because they have set the precedents. So it's important for us, writers of books, to also step up our level and our game and be on top of the world, especially in changing times.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. I just want us to leave that session and go to the second session, which I will still come back to you. Looking at the book, Media and Government at War, if you look at that title, it drives a very strong message in the minds of people. It's catchy. And in journalism, and when we're in school, we're being taught that if you want to write a report, you want to write a story, whatsoever you want to write, make sure that the headline, the title is catchy. So I wish to ask, is the title of this book just meant to catch people's attention, or is due to fact-finding, is due to observation and results?
It's due to all of what you have mentioned. And David Cuillier is a director in the College of Journalism and Communications in the University of Florida in the USA, where I spent one academic year doing research as a Fulbright visiting African research scholar. And he captures that in the foreword, because he led the review team of the book in Florida, that we bring together in this piece of work, Dr. Ndode and I didn't write the book alone. When I conceived the idea of this book 5 years ago, I shared it with Dr. Ndode, my academic son, and we quickly accepted that we will do the book together. It's a 50-50 contribution. Okay. So we did the work 50-50, and I'm happy that we did it this way. And that's also part of mentoring. He says that, David Cuillier, I was going to come back to him, that this book is a combination of theory and practical cases. So you will find in one of the chapters, for instance, where it talks about examples of the ferocious struggle for dominance over ideas, influence, and power. That's who controls the marketplace of ideas, influence, and power. Is it governments or media? More than 20 cases across the different continents of the world of how this battle is raging on. is a book that has 6 chapters, Captivating. In the introduction, we trace this conflict to centuries back. As old as governments and media have existed, they have been battling. Our worry now is that the battle today is so ferocious, and we think it has crossed the Rubicon. And because when a president of a republic, for instance, describes the media as enemy of the people, and that's where the control is, then it's time to watch out. Not only describing it, but putting in place a machinery, a system to crush the media. We think we should sound the alarm bell, and people know that even in war there are rules on how you should live. We'll trace it in chapter 2, going back to theoretical explanations on why it is like this. In chapter 3, we are focusing on the battlefield, where it is. It's in the marketplace of ideas, of influence, of power, and that's where the people are. In chapter 4, we bring these examples that we're talking about, more than 20 cases across the different continents. It's not the Cameroon government we're referring to here. We're referring about governments generally across the world. In chapter 5, we look at the ripple effects of this war, in some societies, because these powerful institutions of government and media are at war. It's shredding other sectors of the economy. Because if you go by the Irish poet, politician, and writer Edmund Burke, he said that the media were the fourth estate, but more powerful than the other estate, referring to executive led by the presidency, prime ministry, and ministers, the judiciary by the courts, from the Supreme Court right down, and then the legislative. In Cameroon you have the Senate and National Assembly, and you say the media are more powerful than them, and he had a point there. The point was that the executive, the legislative get their power from the people. The people vote them to office. But the media, the people get their power from the media. The media inform and educate the people on who to vote in and out of office. That's where the media power is, and that's what makes the media more powerful than the others. So what politicians have done in other parts of the world is to go after the media power and discredit them in the face of the people, and say what, for instance, President Trump in the US said, that the media are the enemy of the people. So with that, you weaken the media power. The media no longer can have the kind of influence they should have over the people in order to vote whoever they want in and out of office. Is a way to destroy our enemy in the battlefield. We think as scholars we should sound the alarm bell. In chapter 5, Dr. Ndode and I, we will look at the future and discuss it from 3 perspectives. Is the future bleak? Is it blur? Are there some missing links that we're not understanding, or is it bright? The conclusion is that the future is what we want it to be. And so it's power from the people. It's the people who determine what their future and that of their children should be, and not power to the people. So the power is in the people, and the struggle to control the people's ideas, to influence the people, and control the power, because these are 2 concepts here. Influence is persuasive in nature, through motivational, programs and things. Power is using authority to ensure that somebody, does what you want to do. These are the things we discuss and make the distinction in this book. And we conclude, Doctor, I think we concluded that the future is bright.
It is.
You can pick up from there.
It is, and that's why we developed in page 219 what we called the golden ring of mutual understanding, in which we are looking at the media on one hand, the government on the other, and then the citizens, for whom all of this battle is meant for. Now, media and government are at war to control what? It is information. That the very essence of information triggers that battle. And when we look at the future, we think that there is hope. And we have also prescribed in the book what we have called the 10 Commandments, prescribed the 10 Commandments of media government relations.
And did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
10 Commandments.
10 Commandments. 10 Commandments of media government relations. We'll give you just one, and then the readers will discover the rest of the 9. And that one is that
I would prefer that one should come at the end. Yes, it should come at the end.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll reserve that at the end. Then.
Yeah, but,
Alright.
but Doctor was going to also cue in, if you want,
Yes.
to talk about the golden rule of mutual understanding.
Good.
It's as one of our prescriptions in the book, that we must the government and media must live together.
Yes.
It's like husband and wife. You've signed for better or for worse. You will not kill your wife or kill your husband because something went wrong somewhere or they are not doing the things that you want. We're bound to live together, everyone in their area of operations, rather than doing everything possible to destroy another institution because you are more powerful, right?
That is it. That ring is so important because we all are looking at the progress of society. And we have argued in the book that for society to move forward, to develop, the government, the media, and then citizens have to collaborate, not seeing each other like enemies, as we have seen in most situations. Prof mentioned a situation here where a head of state calls the press as enemy of the people. And so when you already classify the press as such, it means that you are already dismembering the press and removing them from the idea of development. And it's not possible to talk development without communication. And when we talk communication, we are talking about the media. So these are the ideas which we discuss in the book.
All right, thank you very much. It's a very interesting book. I believe that those who are out there, you are free to be part of the program. You can ask any question. There is a number on your screen. And also there are other questions that are going to come, Prof. I'll come to you, Mr. Musoke. Most of the times you said journalists in Africa, you are not really satisfied with what they are doing. They are supposed to do more. Looking at the book, Media and Government at War, do you think these are some of the barriers that is limiting these journalists from performing well?
I don't think that journalists are limited. My reason for saying that I don't think that journalists are limited is because if you have useful and objective information to pass across, and you pass it across appropriately, I think everybody, because we are all for development. And I think that one of the problems which I've observed in African journalism is that it's mostly skewed. It means that you see hands behind different journalism, but I think that journalism is one. I have not studied journalism. I think that there are principles of journalism, there are principles of communication, and I believe that any communication which comes with the focus to developmental issues, the focus to bring out truth objectively, and this truth that is going to lead to development, this truth that is going to lead to transformation, which is not skewed. I think such journalism or such information or such communication style will be bought by everybody, even when you don't love the truth, and the truth is spoken in a way so as to bring development, change that is developmental, except that you are a human being who is actually not living on earth, because we all wish to see change, developmental change. But I think that one of the problems which I've observed is that journalists take camps, take sides, take positions which at times looks opposite to governmental functioning. I don't think that there's a government on earth that will not wish to see development, that will not wish to see good journalism. I read papers, I read what journalists write, and when I probably assess, for example, the space of Cameroon, when I assess the newspapers in Cameroon, I actually don't know what they actually wish to pass out to the population. Truly speaking, I've been reading papers. Are we really out to develop this country? What is the content? You see somebody publish this personality of the week, for example. Next week you put another personality of the week. I don't know.
None of the content in the newspaper.
No, I'm just trying to give you what my own, because I read a lot. I read papers, I buy papers, I read papers. So what I'm trying to say is that journalists have a strong tool. Journalists have power. They are powerful. communication is power. But I think that they should be able to actually be objective, honest, and truthful, and should not have a target mentality, targeting personalities, but they should actually communicate, pass out their message in such a way that the entire public and the government should actually promote them. So I'm still to read the book but, Governance and yes.
Let me just
war.
If you permit me, Alice, let me respond. I think Lucas has thrown out a few very important issues out there that we should address. We have to assure you that some of those things are partially treated in this book and fully treated in my upcoming publication based on my Fulbright research findings, which is Press Freedom, Access to Information, and Media Ethics in Africa. It's going to be published by Bloomsbury Publishers in the US. The point I want to make there is that one of the reasons why governments argue they keep information from journalists is because journalists, they say, are irresponsible. I think that's what Luke is trying to say, Mr. Musoke. So, yeah, those are the arguments that they use. Because when you're in a battle, you look for all arguments to discredit your enemy, while you strengthen your own case. Why are they in conflict? Dr. Ndode mentioned the power, the struggle for information. The Newman's Guardian was one of those early newspapers I mentioned in the 18th century that was used to empower the people during the Age of Enlightenment. The motto was that knowledge is power, information is power. Because if you control information, you control power. That's where the struggle is. That's why in most cases when there's a coup d'etat, where, you know, the run to first is not the presidency, they run to the media house because the media have the power. That's the power they are all struggling to. So the government has its canons of governance, which in every, you know, administrative institution, they remind you of administrative discretion, secrecy, you know, respect for hierarchy. On the contrary, that is what makes governments to keep certain information based on those canons, that this is private information, it cannot go to the public. On the contrary, the media want the governments to be transparent and accountable, that they should not be hiding things because what they do are supposed to be for the interest of the people. The people should know. And so governments will say, no, we cannot tell you everything that we are doing. And the media say, we want to know. So they are struggling over information. And that information is crucial. And if all that information goes out there, some governments can go down in a minute because there is a lot happening in closed doors across the world. Deals that have not been fully explained, statistics that are unimaginable. In some cases, they don't even know information about the population, so that these are politically motivated issues when you go into elections and things. They are sensitive, what they call top secret, government secrets and things. But the media say, no, our job is to have information and control. And the more of those kinds of information that we publish on our headlines, the more people want to buy. So it's, you know, everyone is struggling to survive in their different sectors, and the battle is becoming more ferocious. This issue of the irresponsible nature of some journalists, it's a very serious issue, and we are treating it. Because if you go for equity, you must go with clean hands. And that's why I address the concept of media ethics. Luke also mentioned one thing which is important about journalism being one. I agree with him. What we see today is a variation of it. Peace journalism, war journalism, and journalism is journalism. It has its canons. And Kwame Epolle was right when he said in 1996 that journalists have sunk so low that they have dashed to the ground the basic canons of the profession. That's what he was referring to. The canons of objectivity, fairness, balance, accuracy. What Bill Kovac and Tom Rosenthal in their book Elements of Journalism, 2001, described as the first, you know, canon, the first principle of journalism, which is the truth that we owe to the people. So there is no other journalism that should deviate from those basic canons. That is no longer journalism. It's like communication. Yeah, I agree with you. This is a very important subject that other people in different sectors now adapt it to their own area. The health people call it health communication. Political scientists call it political communication. People of environmental studies call it environmental communication. There are business people call it business communication. Because it's a very important subject. But we who come from the communication sector say, yeah, you can do that, adapt it. But there are principles that must be respected for it to stay what it has to be when it comes to, whether it's journalism or communication. That's what we advocate in our writings. So I know we will come back to that and explain more about the content of the book and also media coverage of conflicts in Africa. But I think it was important for me to highlight on some of those key issues that Mr. Lucas Mosoke raised. Dr. Ndode, right?
Okay, just go ahead.
Yes, and two issues also stand out in this debate, which we have documented in the book as causes, precursors of the conflict between media and governments. That's one, sensationalism, and then two, media fragmentation. If you look at sensationalism, journalists want to pull attention. That's one of your concerns you raised today when you started introducing the book. Journalists want to highlight an issue so that they draw public attention to it. Some of those issues that they want to pull public attention to are treated with carelessness. And so it contributes to the government having now an area for which they can intervene, an area for which they can want to control for the kind of information that journalists sensationalize. And some of those things bring a lot of conflict between the two. About media fragmentation, media move along their lines. There are religious media, political media, and supporting politicians too, economic media, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the independence of each media institution, as one of the theories we treated in the book, is libertarianism. Now, libertarianism operates within the sphere that media are free to do what they want to do. But that was the very essence of a third theory, which was social responsibility, to ascertain that in as much as you are free to do what you want to do, to publish personality of the week, to publish this, to publish that, you should remain within the domain of responsibility. So we are arguing that within the context of authoritarianism, libertarianism, responsibility, these all contribute to the force, the bride affair that we see today between the media and the government. And that's why we come back to the point around sensationalism, around the independence of the media, around the fragmentation of the media, to ascertain in the end that it's important for all of these forces to be brought together if we want to move society forward.
The media is a fourth estate. They have been given their position. Why are they not taking the power? Like Prof said, they have power. Why are they not using it? Is it that their information is being influenced by something?
No, the media, in my assessment, are using the power they have. They are the fourth estate, which means that they are competing with the other three estates, which are the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative. Now, it is not easy for you to empower an enemy. That's one of the issues we raise in the book.
Oh, yes.
People do not want to empower the media, and they want to have the media under their influence, including economic operators, which are one of the things we have unveiled. Now, this power is being managed by so many persons, so many stakeholders. We are journalists, we are media persons, but there are forces, internal forces, and also external forces that want to have a high hand on what we do. That is why at some point you find the media frustrated inputs. At times you see information going out, and then that information is tilted towards a particular angle. You see some information favoring a particular group of persons. They are using their power in different ways. And also, I mentioned editorial independence. They have various lines that they want to follow. It is difficult to have, for instance, public media and private media have the same line that they follow. What CRTV may see as important may not be what the Guardian Post sees as important. And all of those forces in the media itself, because we are looking at the war between government and media. If you even come within the media sector itself, there is internal war before you even now start talking about the war between the media and government. Those are the issues we unveil in the book.
So that's, Dr. Ndode is warming me up for a lecture this morning. What he touched is important, Alice, and that's why this war is so heavy on the media, that internal fragmentation, because they said united we stand, divided we fall. And the politicians, it is their intention to weaken the media power so that the media do not have the kind of influence they should have over the people to tell them who to vote in or out. So many people are interested in weakening media power. First, it's a lucrative sector. So most of those who own media houses are not even journalists. They're economic operators.
Yeah.
And they have friends who are in governments, and they own money, and they make them own media that will sing praises to those in power. So the media are not independent from that perspective, because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. Tony Blair, when he was prime minister in the UK, he regretted and called himself an idiot for empowering the media so hard, and he said it's like someone who is using maybe a pen to hit your head and you give them a hammer. It's just to finish you completely. So if these people are at war, who will be interested to empower your enemy with cannons and nuclear heads to finish you completely? It would be in your own interest to weaken them. And different countries have used different strategies. They have used legislation. They have used outright restrictions like censorship or banning of imprisonment of journalists. They have used subtle ways like indirect control or self-censorship by giving, journalists subventions. It's unheard of in the US. If you hear that the media is receiving subvention from government, you will not bite the finger that feeds you. Those are all the intrigues that are going on in this war, whether they are covert or overt, those machinations which are meant to, destroy completely the media power. Because already the way society is structured, governments are more powerful in these cases than the media because of the financial base, because they are well structured. In fact, when I teach media institutions, I tell them that in Cameroon, there is no media house that can be described as an institution, maybe except SCRTV, that can compete with the government machinery, the government institutions. They have been put in place, the funding is there, the training is there, the personnel are there, and all the structures are such that, you cannot, fight against them favorably. But where is the issue? The issue, as you see the book, is the people. You can be that powerful also as a government with structures and everything in place, but the people are not with you. So that's where the media should base their focus, in educating, in informing the people, so that the people can go after what it's their right. Mm-hmm. And the book now says, for the media to do that, they have to be professional. Because we are talking about tailoring training for media people to be able to convince the public that what we are saying, it's the right thing. Our information is genuine. But if you have a media which is ngombo reading, unprofessional, full of those internal divisions and things, how are you going to face the mighty governments that you are at war with? That's the question we address.
All right, thank you. I'll come back to you. Let me just come to you for a second. Mr. Muscat, last edition we're talking about intellectuals, and you were very bitter with most of them, majority of them, that they should bring solutions to the many problems that Africa is facing. We have intellectuals here on set. They have been producing books, and they just released 2 very important books. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I think what I finally came to realize is the fact that nobody can call another person an intellectual. An intellectual is qualified by their output. There is input and there is output. And where most persons called intellectuals have failed is at the level of the output, not the input that they got. And output extends to the outreach to the community. There are many people called intellectuals, but even journalists have questioned this issue of intellectualism. What is it all about? Is it doctorate and professorship and all those titles that make you an intellectual? No. I believe that an intellectual should be able to prove his worth to have been an intellectual, or to be an intellectual by the output. It should be seen by the public. For example, these books. This is a proof to show that these are intellectuals, because they are sending out a product to the public. So the public now can testify that it has not only ended with a person having the designation or the title or whatsoever you may call it, but this proof is touching us, because this is the community. Now the community will take these books, read, and be transformed. So intellectualism should touch the community. It should touch the people. It should not end at the four walls of classrooms. It should touch the masses. It should reach out to the desperate population, the dying population. For example, somebody asks, are there intellectuals in Africa? It's a very big question. Then why is Africa still struggling and crying and the rest? Because intellectuals solve problems. They bring solutions to communities and make sure that things are done the right way. So intellectualism has many ways and many definitions. But I think that the popular one that is known by everybody is that an intellectual is somebody who has a title, maybe a doctor, a professor, and so on. That is the general notion of the public and the community. But we went further to say that no, intellectualism should not only end up by possessing titles, names, and the rest, but it should move to the people. Let the people feel the touch of intellectuals. For example, through their books and other works that can transform the communities. So we have intellectuals on board. They have a proof of what they have done, and they have done more than this. This is not just what they have done. So that is where we were saying that intellectualism should not end up at the four walls of the classroom, but let the community feel the touch, feel the fact that we have intellectuals. They are solving problems, they are bringing solutions, they are proposing what we can do to be transformed, to change. So that's where I was trying to base my argument.
All right, thank you.
Yes, so it should not only end at the level of the head, the heart, and the four walls of the classroom, but the masses, the suffering masses, the suffering population should actually feel the fact that intellectuals have brought a transformation, solutions to their problems through different strategies that those intellectuals can use to reach out onto them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Prof, the president of the National Communication Council, George Obonken, came to Buea some months back and awarded some journalists here it was done there at Mountain Hotel. So don't you think that this is the government cooperating with the journalists, or is another form of weakening the influence, the power that the journalists?
Alice, I love your question. Because in this book, the first perspective we hold is that over the years, the relationship between media and governments has been confrontational. It's an adversary relationship. But we also say, but with a low tone, that it can also be collaborative. And when David Cuillier, the director at the College of Journalism, read that part of the book before he wrote the foreword, he said that is strange. And in America, maybe we were using the Cameroon perspective or the Cameroon, model to explain this, where after an election, the minister of the government will come out and say that the media behaves very well. It means that you were moving along the government lines. I know where you are coming from and the feeling that you have, because who is sponsoring those awards? The prototype communication model, which was proposed by C.C. Blake, on how communication councils should be formed, is not completely respected in most African countries, because in C.C. Blake's model, which is in Nyamjo's book in 2005, the publication on media, and in Africa, belonging and all of that, and politics. Nyamjo, and bringing in C.C. Blake, talks about an independent National Communication Council where people are elected, not appointed. And one control mechanism is appointments. Because, like I said, you don't buy the finger that feeds you. Who pays the piper dictates the tune. So I don't know the content, probably abroad at the time, for my Fulbright about what the awards were, the whole idea about it. But people are worried about, for instance, a media that has subvention from the same government that is at war with. This is not only Cameroon, it's in different parts of the world. We are discussing here as intellectuals. Yeah, can you still get it and be independent in saying the truth? Without, when I got to CRTV many years ago, they talked to me about the editorial policy, and I think Dr. Dodo raised it. They said it was in a blue book, and that CRTV's editorial policy was to project and protect the government in power, not necessarily a civilian government, whichever government which is in power. And I was curious to read that kind of editorial. But when I looked at the blue book, nothing like that was written. So sometimes we have those editorial lines in our heads. We just think that it is like that. But there in CRTV, you also have people who are critical of certain government actions. Because even within governments, we talked about division within the media, but we have also discussed divisions within governments in other parts of the world. The governments are not one block and united as we think. Look at the US example. The Supreme Court, the Capitol Hill, the White House, all have different positions within, within the same issue in different times. In Cameroon, it's the same thing. It's an illusion to think that the parliament and the Supreme Court and the executive are all, related in a way that they cannot oppose each other. We have had areas where people speak against others within the same government. So that's how democratic societies should be. And the prototype we are recommending here, because we have shown example of how the media operate in different societies. That's why it's talking about the theoretical perspective. These are how governments should operate and media in democratic society where places are supposed to be civil. But when in leading democratic societies like the US, for instance, you see the kind of media government war during especially the period of Donald Trump with more than 26,000 tweets against the media, then you are worried that if gold can rust, what will iron do? With this leader of democracy for over 250 years, this relationship is that ferocious now. It is ferocious. Then what will military juntas coming across Africa now, like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Gabon now do? They will now all say that if gold can rust, what will iron do? We are not only advocating for the survival of the media, but we are also advocating for the sanity of the governments, for the transparency of governments. That's how a democratic society should be, Alice.
All right, thank you very much. We need to also talk about the other book.
Yes.
But before then, I would just like the doctor to give us that commandment, one of the commandments you were supposed to give us to conclude on this
that
book quickly.
Commandment established on page
Yes.
219 or
Yes.
so
Yes.
is that thou shalt not see each other as enemies.
Yes.
That's governments and media
Yes.
should not see each other as enemies.
That's the first commandment.
First commandment.
In page 221,
21.
there are 10 commandments
That's
that Ngange and Dode are advocating
Okay.
in this battle between media and government, Doctor.
That's it. And we do so because we are focusing on progress. Media do not exist in a vacuum. The society cannot also exist in a vacuum. So for the media, government does not exist in a vacuum as well. So for government and media to move this society forward, to transform the society, the transformative leadership, the constructive criticisms that Mr. Musoke spoke about, for this to happen, we need to collaborate across the board. It may sound very difficult, but we have to do it.
Let me end with, in this perspective, with commandment number 8.
Okay.
It says, thou shalt, and we are speaking to the media and government, know that the marketplace of ideas which you are trying to influence is a common good. It's not your property. So thou shalt not treat it negatively. You should not mess up with the people because the people have the power. That is the principle of democracy across the world. When the US founded the concept of democracy as a good system of governance, it was government of the people, by the people, for the people. So it's power from the people and not power to the people. So don't mess up with the marketplace of ideas, both media and governments, because that's where power is.
Thank you very much. And from the beginning, I said it's also very important for us to have great minds on set. And today they are giving out knowledge to the public. You can be part of the program. I will check my phone later. The second book, Media Coverage of Conflict in Africa. That's the second book we are talking about. Normally, it's a duty for a journalist or for a media house to cover events, and conflict is one of them. Now, this book, what are you people trying to bring out?
8 years ago, we conceived this book. That was in 2016, just when the crisis that you know broke in the Southwest. At the time, it was a crisis. Now it's prolonged, so it's a conflict. Started. We did the first book. Professor Tala Kashim and I edited it, and Dr. Ndode in 2019, 3 years into the crisis. And that first volume was Anglophone Lawyers and Teachers Strikes in Cameroon, a multidimensional perspective. We wanted to capture, as I had said earlier, what was going on as things were evolving. Because I've argued, Alice, that in 20, 30 years, when people write about this crisis, you will not recognize it. And we did so in our first volume, and we didn't have any objection because the facts were on the ground, you could verify.
All copies sold.
All copies sold. We don't even have copies. That's why you see we're pleading to the public. These are all our initiatives. They should come also to our assistance so that we can produce as many copies as possible for Cameroonians to read. The second volume has been in the works since then, but now focusing on the media's role in the conflict. So in 11 chapters and 12 contributors, I'm the editor of the book, but I'm not the one who wrote the book. I have some chapters in the book. I have 5 chapters in the book that I've co-authored with other scholars. Dr. Ndode has 5 chapters. He's co-authored with other scholars. Some of the chapters I've co-authored with him. We have other contributors like Professor Tala Kashim. We have Dr. Stephen Mokundo. We have young, scholars who are coming up in my PhD program, like Martin Elonge. We have Neville Mesumbe. We have Antoinette Bwinda, Abba Isidore. We have Abane Jeffrey. We have Oscar Lisonge Ngongo. And so all of these are research works that we have done for the past 8 years. Some of these students were supervised by me, who wrote the papers together, and I thought it's an opportunity to publish their findings with them inclusive, and be authors, of what they have done, so that our research does not end in library shelves and do what universities are known to do, publish in partial fulfillment for the requirement to graduate, but research which is problem solving. And that's how we transform all of that into a book form of 11 chapters with 12 contributors, one of them being Dr. Ndode. You want to give us some of the contents of the book?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Alice and Professor. Before I go into the contents, on behalf of myself and all other contributors, we give so much respect to Professor Ngange. I was going to say that in the end, to combine for the 2 books,
Okay.
but I will say it now. To rally young minds, young people towards scholarship, to provide alternative solutions to move our society forward. This is a documentation of the Cameroon Anglophone conflict, and we thought that this is necessary because 5, 10, 15, 50 years to come, people will forget, and easily so. So it's important that we document these initiatives and be remembered for a long time. It is not only in hard copy, as you raised in the first debate that we had, but these books are also online. They are going online. We are now working on the contracts to get them on Amazon and other online platforms so that the world can see our empiricism, our ability to gather all of these evidences. So with regards to the contents of the book, we have been able to look at the coverage of the conflict from theoretical perspective. We explained how the media set the agenda for people's understanding of the Cameroon-Anglophone conflict. We are in it. We are in the Cameroon-Anglophone conflict. All of us involved. The whole world is involved in it. Everybody wants to see what is happening in Cameroon. People want to hear. People want to read what is happening in Cameroon. So we thought that it's important to document empirically what is happening. We looked at content analysis of what newspaper reports have been able to document for the past 8 years about this conflict from both Francophone newspapers and Anglophone newspapers. We have looked at audience assessments in one of the chapters where people now assess what the media do, because at times if you work, it's difficult to assess yourself. So we went down to the people of Cameroon to tell us what they think about media reporting of the Cameroon-Anglophone conflict. And if we talk media here, we are talking of media across the board. The people assessed online media, the internet, social media, all social media platforms. The people assessed newspapers, they assessed radio, they assessed television, blogs, online blogs, and so on and so forth. In one of the chapters also in which I'm one of the contributors, we have looked at the journalistic implications in terms of the training. What are we offering? Professor Ngange spoke about all kinds of journalism. War journalism, peace journalism, environmental journalism, business journalism or communication, and so on and so forth. So what are we proposing? One of the recommendations we have made here is on the training. We are doing a lot in terms of training. But when the product gets out into the market, we also now have to work a lot to improve it in the market. That is the reason for improvement. Societies must improve. People must improve. So we are back on journalism training as a strong foundation, because just as we spoke about information in the first book, information is also a key ingredient in this book on media coverage of conflicts in Africa. Because one of the things we have underlined is that when people do not have information in conflict times, they are worried, they are stressed, they are distressed, people are uncomfortable. So they want information.
That's right.
And you know by how much information can create value and even stability in people when they know what is happening.
That's right.
Look at the situation we have lived in for the past 8 years now, and by how much information has become a very seriously contested commodity, both online and offline. So these are the chapters. In the end, we have concluded to also look at whether the future of media coverage of conflicts is bleak, is blurry, or it is bright. And we have established that the future is bright. And that future comes back to all of us, citizens of the world, citizens of Africa, citizens of Cameroon, as contributors to be able to help the media with the right data, with the right information, to be able to feed people with the right contents during conflict situations.
Let me just summarize the succinct presentation made by Dr. Ndode by saying that he touched on a very important issue: information as a commodity. Because information is so important, people have come out after it and given it different variations I was talking about earlier. So you have misinformation, you have disinformation, you even have myth-information and malinformation. Those are concepts we have treated in the book, so that you confuse people about information, because it's so important. So what Dr. Ndode was saying is that we have 11 chapters. Chapter 1 talks about introduction, looking at all the media forms that covered this conflict for the past 8 years. In chapter 2, we explain the theoretical perspective, both media theories, about 12 of them, and conflict theories, another 10 theories, to help us understand the relationship between media and conflicts. In chapter 3, we start narrowing down to specific media forms. We even looked at the media coverage of the Buea Council. The Buea Council is the epicenter of the conflict until we get to Buea. Everybody will, it's Buea, Buea, Buea. How did the media cover Buea Council, especially during the period of the late Ekema Patrick Esunge as mayor? It's important. And balance that with today. Do we have double faces, double, forms of media? Are we, genuine in our reporting? Why was it like that yesterday and not like this today? Media must be able to set a standard. Then we move forward in chapter 4 to look at things like, social media coverage, where Abba Isido and myself are talking about Facebook coverage, propaganda, and the different forms of propaganda in the work. Then in chapter 6, we look at the CCTV coverage. You know, we bring in a dimension of things that people do not know, how you use these, cameras everywhere to cover conflict situation. That's what Martin Elonga and I did. Then from there, we start moving now to look at the humanitarian aspect of it. How did the media cover the humanitarian aspect of the conflict? In chapter 8, we are already touching about the implication and challenges of the journalists covering the conflict. We wanted to find out from journalists, what is it like covering the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest? All of those challenges are presented. Then in chapter 9, we are dealing there with the people's assessment. In all of what we have done from chapter 1 to 8, what do the people think? Because it's about the people. Have we done a good job or not? And I can tell you that the people have assessed that the media in most cases didn't do a very good job. And I have said so in previous areas, that this war or conflict has been a media communication conflict. Held up there, created in some cases by the media, escalated by the media, sustained by the media, which have refused to resolve it. But thank God that we are seeing the crisis now downgrading. It was a downward trend, and we are so happy that the media are playing a role now which is more positive than previous roles. So in chapter 10, Dr. Ndode comes in from a perspective he did in his PhD thesis that I supervised, which is tailoring journalism training towards conflict reporting. Because one of the things we've observed is that journalists report anyhow because they don't have any training. In most of the journalism schools in Cameroon, there are no courses about conflict reporting. Yes. Yet conflict is part and parcel of society. Man is at war with himself. Let's use our concepts. Man is at war with the environment. Everywhere man is in change. So conflict is everywhere. Whether it's inter-societal conflict, all forms of conflict. Yet, journalists are not trained on this very important concept, and Dr. Ndode is worried about that because he addressed it in his PhD thesis that was supervised by me. And we tailored it now into this work and brought out 25 themes. And those themes have addressed how we should tailor our journalism training into, conflict reporting. Finally, in chapter 11 in this book, we look at the future, not only of this Cameroon Anglophone conflict, media reporting of it, but of media reporting of conflicts throughout the world. And we look at it, is it bleak, is it blur, is it bright? I've taught media and conflicts across different parts of Africa, whether it's in Uganda, in Somalia, in Somaliland, in Ethiopia, and all those post-war reconstruction countries. The story is the same everywhere. The media are a dangerous and curious instrument. Howard said so in 2005. Like a double-edged sword. You can use them for conflict escalation, you can use them for conflict resolution. Yes. We conclude in our book that the media, in the hands of good people, because these are tools. Media don't kill, guns don't kill people kill people using guns. Yes. And when they want to kill, if there are no guns, they will use other things. So people should be able to look at the future when from this bright perspective and know that the media can be more responsible. To conclude, we are advocating for a media that will be development oriented. A media, we know that sometimes, bad headlines form, the best, stories to sell the media, yes. But not when human life is at stake. Because in the end of it, it's about human lives. It's about human development. So that's what this book is all about. It's a collection of what you can't find anywhere else, of what has happened from the media perspective. Others can write from their own perspective, but we as communication people, scholars, have written from the media perspective, and you can't find this anywhere else. It's 408 pages, distributed in 11 chapters, authored by 12 contributors, solidly edited by me, and then approved through the foreword by the top Cameroonian scholar in terms of communication, Professor Emeritus Laurent Charles Bouyoumou Asala, who was director of the Advanced School of Mass Communication in the University of Yaoundé for over 16 years, and now a senator. So it tells you that this is not any cassava farm or Bomaka publication.
The books are quite rich, and Professor Kingsley Ngange and Dr. Ndode, I hope the copies are enough, because all the journalists must have a copy. If they want to get, each of them want to have a copy. Government personalities, each of them want to have a copy, and then the population. We need more of.
Yeah, so I can assure them that the copies are not many. There are only 200. Luke is already ordering 10. People have called me, they are ordering. So it is Thursday in amphitheater, first come, first serve.
Yes.
If you come 1 hour late, you will not meet the books.
Really
That's why I'm telling you that the first editions of our books have been sold.
Oh.
We did 2 prints. Professor Tala Kashim, that's one of my mentors, academic mentors, will tell you about it. It is only one now who has about 3 or 4 copies. I don't even, everywhere I've gone, they've taken the copies. So we're telling Cameroonians that they should at some point also come in to assist us, and that's what we'll be doing on Thursday. So we can print more copies, and even at a reduced price, for people to read what we have written. Because many years to come, this will be the reference document. That's why I'm supervising the PhD now in history, which looks at the relationship between analyzing historical facts and media coverage of those facts. Because these are the documents people will rely on many, many years to come to do their research and findings. And we in Cameroon, as Professor Victor Juliongo said, we are used to twisting our historical facts to suit our idiosyncrasies and biases. And I think that some of these books have come to debunk some of those things, even in perspective, that people will want to write, about what is happening. We are seeing it and feeling it. We are analyzing the media reports and content. It's a quantitative piece of research. So it's not based on idiosyncrasies and biases, but by facts that have been analyzed and approved, and of works that have been defended in well-constituted academic panels, which awarded the candidates A grades. We'll put them in a book form. So this is worth having, but there are not many copies. There are only 200 copies of this, 200 copies of this, and after they are sold, what next? We have birthed the child. You cannot allow Dr. Ndode Ana and Dr. Mokimo Kundo and the other scholars, some of whom are students, to take care of the child from 0 year to 100 years. Yeah? Children are also fed by neighbors, isn't it, Luke? Yeah. So we are calling neighbors of goodwill to come in and help these ideas reach the entire, Cameroon population, Africa, and the world. Dr. Ndode, did I miss out on anything?
Yes, just talk about the launching that is coming up.
The launching of the 2 books is on Thursday, the 8th of August, 2024, at the Amphitheater 150C of the University of Buea. It is 1 p.m. at the dot, 1 p.m.
Chaired by the Vice Chancellor.
Chaired by the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea, Professor Ngomo Horace Manga.
Who is a lover of books.
Yes.
And has encouraged us in doing what we do.
Yes, he bought many copies.
Last time when we published the first book with Professor Tala Kashim, edited by Professor Tala Kashim and I, the Vice Chancellor bought 15 copies of that book.
For the University Library.
For the University Library. And when I returned from Florida, he was so happy that we came back with these products. That's the main reason why we're sent out there in the first place. Because when we do this research internationally, it's the name of Cameroon first, the name of University of Buea second, where we come. The Cameroonian scholar from the University of Buea, before they start calling our names.
Yes.
So it's not about Kingsley, it's not about Ndode, it is about Cameroon, fatherland. Then University of Buea, our pride, that has trained us, has provided jobs for us to take the name of Cameroon and the university higher through our research. That's what scholars do, right?
Yes, that's what scholars do. Mr. Masoke, you've been quiet. You always talk to your youths, and they have just mentioned Abba Isidore, they've mentioned Oscar Abanejev. These are young people, and you see how they are impacting their society. But we know that we have so many of these youth who are out there wasting away, engaging into other activities that are not meaningful, that will not yield any fruit. I want you to use this opportunity maybe to address some of these youth, that some, even though they are doing what they are doing, there are some of them that are doing meaningful things in their life and taking the right path.
Yeah, I think we need not repeat what we've seen all this while, but I just wish to encourage all the youth to get a copy each at least, because this already the copies are are not many. And we also wish to me, I also wish to say that volunteers, entrepreneurs, and the rest, these are opportunity. This is an opportunity to sow, to come and support NGOs, church leaders, and the rest. Come and support this initiative, so that you can even come and say you are going to pay for your church. This is 5 million francs. I need more copies of
that's it. And they will be produced and given to your church.
Yes.
And we are selling these copies. I think this is important for just a minor, small token of 20,000 francs. If you look at the work that's been done,
8 years and 5 years.
Yes, 8 years and 5 years of enormous research and the publication, the cost and the rest. And I want to say that the first one, which was done for 3 years, we sold at 15,000, and we never left any launching hall with copies. By the time we left Yaoundé ASMAC, because we launched it first for some reasons, in Heve Bouge Amphitheater in ASMAC. That's the Advanced School of Mass Communication in the University of Yaoundé too. We criticized that why did we start there? The second launch was in Boya. And people offered to have a reprint, and that's what we made copies and launched in the University of Boya. Now charity begins at home. We're starting in Boya. And we're saying that lovers of books should help us to print more copies and distribute it to people. So we're inviting them to come. A token of 20,000. That one was 312 pages, and it was in 7 chapters. Well documented evidence with different authors. In that first volume, you had Professor Roland Dile, who wrote chapter 1. Is the head of the department for history. You had Professor Tamfu Wilson from the legal perspective. He wrote the second chapter. The third chapter was written by Professor Epa Fonken, an educationist, with Professor Sophia Thomas. Then you had Professor Tala Kashim wrote the next chapter because he was in the dialogue, so he looked at the dialogue perspective. I wrote the chapter 5, which was on media, and Professor Molua, Ernest Litier, who is Deputy Vice Chancellor in Bamenda University, wrote the chapter on socioeconomic impact of it. Dr. Ndode concluded the book by looking at different perspectives. And Bayen, from the examples, the journalism, stories as they were evolving, so from a journalistic perspective. So it is always coming from different people, and it's so like hot cake. So this one, just a token of 20,000 francs, you get a copy. And please rush for your copies, because after Thursday, I think we'll only be soliciting for more funds to print more copies. This all along has been done from our own pockets and initiatives. You know what it means from the conceptualization phase to the writing. Writing is difficult, it's tough. Yes. Most people can't write. And not only writing, scientific writing. Then you go through the reviewing process, editing process, peer review process of books. That's taken us 8 years to do all of that at different levels of peer reviews until have the kind of recognition for the book endorsement. This one on conflict endorsed by Professor Laurent Charles Boyo Mwasala that I mentioned, who wrote the foreword, and the one on media and governments at war, endorsed by a director in the College of Journalism and Communications, Dr. David Culier, tells you how much work has been done. And I just want to conclude that in the book launch of Thursday, Dr. Ndode, the first book on media and governments at war will be reviewed by a very, very well-read professor of international relations and, political science, who was the former head of the Department of International Relations and Conflict Resolution, Professor Tabing Kongo. Professor Tabing Kongo will be reviewing the first book. And the second book, Media and Media Coverage of Conflicts in Africa, will be reviewed by Professor Kiven James, who is a professor of conflict resolution and political science as well. He is the current head of the Department of International Relations and Conflict Resolution in the Faculty of Laws and Political Science of the University of Boya. So Thursday, I think, is going to be a blast in Amphi 150C of the university from 1 p.m.
The hall will really take the population, because the place may be stormed by thousands of persons.
Well, when you come, we have bigger amphitheaters.
Okay.
The registrar, in her wisdom, mentioned that to us.
Okay.
That, Prof, would you consider Amphi 750? I said, well, let's start from 150. 750 is just next door. So once we see that the crowd cannot be managed in 150, we'll just move next door and it's 750. The registrar, in our wisdom, has already made provisions for that. So, and come one, come all.
All right, Thursday, August 8th, 1 p.m. is going to be chaired by the VC himself, and also we are encouraging everybody to be there. Go and get your own copy. And to conclude briefly, Prof, we are looking at the installation, your recent installation as notable of the Boya Chiefdom here in Boya.
First class chiefdom.
First class chiefdom in Boya. I wish to ask this question. These things always comes with responsibilities. It's not just giving. So you have been given this title, you have been installed. What are you promising the Boya population?
I was installed, knighted, as a notable of the first class chiefdom of Boya, with the paramount chief being His Royal Majesty Dr. Robert Erukali Babalendeli. To me, that was a very humbling experience. And what is the responsibility, you asked? It's aligned in the terms of reference and duties of notables, which the paramount chief read, mentioned in a speech, and handed to us. But the underlying mission is to serve. It's to serve the people. He is a man of vision. We've not had this for a very long time. And that vision is the kind of thing we see in Moses' leadership in the Bible, when he now starts giving responsibilities and rules to different people to help him manage the people. That's how men of vision lead their, institutions and that. Assigning roles and responsibilities to those that they have seen clearly what they have done on the ground and know that they can help them achieve this mission. So I'm only pledging my loyalty to the palace, to our people of Boya. You know how we have served this country and this Boya. When people said there will not be schools, there were very few who said there will be schools. And today all the schools are going on and everyone is coming here to go to those schools. You look back and say, thank God we served. But our lives were threatened. Our children were evacuated. They went to Douala and so forth. We were sleeping in our homes, one eye open, sometimes in our ceiling, because our lives were threatened, simply because we said our children should go to school. Because we've been to the world and we have seen how when children don't go to school, they can even be a more danger to society than what we see today. See the amount of drugs, marijuana, and the rest which are being destroyed every day. Because some of those people consuming them were not given the opportunity to go to school. It's Ngange and a few people who said that people should go to school. We stood by the Southwest Teachers Association, Soweto. Professor Agbobeche, myself, Professor Mulwa, a few people said that our children should go to school through the Southwest Teachers Association. We advocated repeatedly for the creation of the École Normale Supérieure, the higher teachers training college here. People should be reminded of this story, that we needed teachers trained here so that they can also help us in future to say that children should go to school. Because even the greatest of all revolution people, it is true that those are facts and details that so many people don't know and may not be interested in now because, the baby is born. But these are the things that the paramount chief in his wisdom has seen. And to say these are the people who are serving the community. And Ngange should be given that traditional recognition. And I'm humble that we'll keep serving the people. And sometimes serving the people is courage. You take tough decisions. When I served at the council as the Works and Development Committee Secretary during the mandate of Ekema Patrick Esunge, we worked tirelessly for order to reign in Boya. That's why almost everybody is in Boya. as a Goshen, a safe zone. If that work had not been done, we would not be where we are today. Those stories should be told. That's why even in our books we make sure that some facts, not our idiosyncrasies and biases, should be highlighted for people to read. A lot of work has been done here. I've served my community now for close to 50 years. I've served the University of Buea alone for about 26 years. This is what we will continue to do, to educate our people and serve our community. So I thank you, Your Highness. I pledge you loyalty to the institutions of the state to serve as a notable in Buea, because this chiefdom of Buea is part of the Cameroon state and must work in line with the vision and mission of the Republic. So we are serving Cameroon from Buea, and we are happy to do so to serve fatherland.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. We are rounding up because it's almost time. Mr. Musoke, we are taking on your conclusion.
Yeah, I think all have been said. Now it's left to us Cameroonians to be present during this book launch and buy copies and contribute to make sure that more copies are printed. And I think that just by listening, you will love to know all the commandments that book. So come and buy copies so that you should know the content, get the commandments that are cited there or written therein. But I just wish to talk to the youth, telling them that these are examples and you should be able to copy good examples. That's what we said here last week, that don't copy wrong, negative examples. Be a youth who is morally and ethically upright. Don't put your hands in things that are abusive, things that are negative, things that are illegal. But put your hands on things that are positive, things that are legal, things that are morally upright and ethical. Don't rush. Take your time, and tomorrow you are going to make it. Don't look for quick money, because there's so many of you want to get money quick. No, please. There is no quick money. Go gradually, follow the process, and your time will come where God is going to give you that which you deserve. Read, study, develop yourself, and you will see the result at the end. Don't look at cheap popularity left and right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. You are taking on your conclusion.
Yes, maybe I should give the conclusion to my academic son. And to say that Dr. Ndode has been wonderful. I've worked with him since when he came as an undergraduate student for me to train since 2008. Today I think we are colleagues, we are peers, and I'm happy to have worked with him up to this point, and I've introduced him to the world. He's a genius and makes my work lighter, because the way we work, they say, can two work together unless they agree? As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. So wherever we find ourselves, he can conclude for me as well. Wow. And let him go ahead and publish, and God will bless him. And I will be there to back him up as a scholar. Yes, because he's a replica of what I stand for and what I have put in him, and God too has put in him, and other teachers and many others. So this is a great scholar, and I want to say that no one should despise your youth, because intelligence is not by age. Because there are some old stupid people too, right?
Yes, of course.
So Dr. Ndode can comfortably conclude.
This is a father appreciating the son and blessing the son at the same time.
Yes.
And I've done so in public.
I wish to give back the gratitude to Professor Ngange for allowing us to stand side by side with him to co-publish. I wish to remark here that this is my 22nd academic publication, but the first book I am authoring. I have co-written chapters with him in national and international journals and books. I have done journal articles with him and other scholars, but this is my first book with him. As his first PhD,
yes,
I can say with all confidence that Professor Ngange is a light for us younger scholars. I have seen it. Prof, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I've concluded.
Okay, thank you very much. The launching is on Thursday, August 8th, Amphi 150C, and the time is 1 p.m. So the population, the Boya population, and even out of Boya, you are called to be part of that launching. Thanks for being part of this program. The rebroadcast comes up at 10 p.m. Do well to join us again next week and stay tuned to High Television.